So where do I sign in? The X up there on the tab in the upper left. Oh, started it. No, I didn't touch it. I was reading your mind. Start. Hi, Denise. Good morning.
Morning.
So the X up there on the tab, the left.
I'm going to sit for a while.
How goes it?
Morning.
Great day, isn't it?
Makes me glad I'm on my lawn yesterday.
I do too.
I did 3.
Great ones, they love. Just so.
What the weatherman said. But that's never.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right, it's all over the dice.
Yeah, but when this says 90% chance of rain.
Started.
Yeah.
No, I didn't touch it. I was reading your mind. Hi, Denise.
Good morning, Commissioner Selden.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Gail. Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're ready to get some of it. Okay, ready to go. It's 9:30 and we'll call the Lakewood Civil Service Commission meeting Thursday, May 5th to order. And present are two of the commissioners here in the room, and then our third one is by Zoom. So Eileen Basson and Dennis Rogan are here, and then Gail Selden is is on Zoom with us. We're on, she's here electronically. Okay, first order of business is the approval of minutes. Is there a motion to have those approved? Second, is there a second? I'll second. There we go. It's been approved and seconded. So anything else that you have any questions on this? Okay. No, move on to new business. The first order was a cancellation.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to add another item to the agenda before the first item of the agenda.
Okay.
A general discussion of the disqualification criteria and the number of disqualifications that we've seen. I'm becoming alarmed by the number of disqualifications that we've seen. I thought 10 or 12 back in November, December. Hopefully was an aberration. And then I'm seeing 5 out of 15 of the individuals who were added to the list last meeting are now disqualified, which means that all of that work that has been going into testing the individuals, doing background investigations, we're getting a high number of disqualifications. And I think back years ago when we had 0. In fact, the first one that I can remember was probably 2 years ago, maybe 3. When Mary mentioned, oh, I'm going to send out a letter on disqualification if you want to review the file. And I did. And now we've got 10, now we've got 1/3 of the individuals. What's happening?
Well, it's a couple of things. It's first of all, sheer numbers. I mean, back when I started the team, we were hiring 1 to 2 people a year. So when you refer to a list for one position, you get 5 names. So those 5 names for one position, if you hire somebody, there's a good chance out of 5, nobody's going to be queued. Just because, and we had a different pool of candidates back then too. Everybody in this region is grabbing up police candidates and recruits as much as they can. So, I mean, when I tested, showed up to 1,200 people at a test for 5 positions. We have 30 showing up for, we're trying to get 10 spots. So it's a numbers game in that sense too, but the candidate pool has dropped a little bit, but we're also referring way more people. So out of that, we're seeing more candidates. Like I was trying to say, if you see one position, you refer 5 people. I mean, those 5 are probably, somebody's not going to be queued. They're all pretty decent because they're up at the top of the list. But the people we go into these lists, the more problems we have. And it's not just unique to Lakewood PD. If you talk to the county especially, and Tacoma, we're down 50, 60. We've noticed they're grabbing some of the people that we've DQ'd or passed on. And we'll never lower our standards. We're never going to lower our standards. So the DQs are going to occur because we're going to go, our standards are the same as they were back then. And now just because we're people, we'd rather be short than take people that are doing problems later on. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's more of a numbers game. We're seeing so many more people now for all these positions that I think just the odds are that we're bound to DQ people. Because it is, like I said, we're not getting 1,200 people showing up for a test. We have 30 every time. Every time we quarterly test, regardless of what we've had 100 eligible for the test, 60, 70. We seem to have this weird metric of always getting about 30 to 35 people. And that list consistently gets down to about 20 eligible candidates. And that's because they don't make it through that written test, they don't make it through physical agility, or they fall out of our rigid process that we're not going to compromise in the city that we're going. So I think that's why we're seeing it. We've noticed it too.
Yeah. And I think it just has to do with the sheer amount of backgrounds that we're actually doing. Previously, in the years that you were referencing, we would have a list of 30 or 40 people. I mean, and we were only hiring 1 or 2 per year. Well, we'd only get a look at maybe 5 to 10 from that list. Now we get lists of 20, and we're getting all of them referred, and we're doing backgrounds on all of them.
Okay, so it's basically a numbers thing rather than the with the people who are applying. And we're having any and all number of people who are applying who have these questionable backgrounds. It just seemed to me that when we had 15 people on the last list, and these people wanted to be police officers, and they passed all of the tests. And there was a lot of work that went into getting 15, 1/3 of them have a questionable background.
Sure.
That just, it was just surprising.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it doesn't take a lot if you put the effort in to pass a written test. And if you do your homework or due diligence, you can pass the civil service board to get put in the process. That doesn't take into account anything that they've done in their life from that point and before. And that's what we look at in background phase. So we're getting a little more in depth in what we're seeing as opposed to just, yeah, they did the work to pass the test. That's great. We'd like to see that. Because if we can get a look at that, this is what they're going to do, that quality candidate for our department.
Seems the choices that people have been making in the last 5, 10, 15 years, that just poor choice making in life issues. And so when it comes time to test, yeah, I don't want to be a police officer, but like you're saying, it's just it's poor choices that they've made. Just come back to first, and that's it. It's out there.
And you'll find that none of our D2s are for frivolous reasons. So it's not like they missed a deadline of turning in paperwork. These are for legitimate disqualification groups.
And thank you. That answers my question. That leads me to my next question. It's just a general discussion. Put disqualification criteria, not individuals. But one of the criteria was disqualifying criteria was misdemeanor within the last 3 years, or domestic violence incident, or crime in the last 3 years. My first question is, have the criteria that you use to disqualify for a person, has that changed over the years, or is it the same written criteria that you're using?
The only changes we've made to the criteria is the drug standards to address the changing laws that reflect on them. Yeah, as far as arresting convictions, any felony convictions are going to be an automatic disqualifier. The domestic violence is generally an automatic disqualifier. It hasn't changed. Yeah, no, it hasn't. So no, none of that has previously changed.
And I just wanted to add, the other component is a failure to disclose any of that, even if it's fairly benign. If it's not disclosed and then it gets found, that's its whole own different problem.
I can understand. Yeah, that's deception.
Right.
You know, trying to file back. I can understand that. Why did you choose 3 years like for a domestic crime? Or, you know,
I would assume that fell under the best practices, and I didn't even be able to shed some light on that, but that's, and we weren't part of that.
well,
We inherited that standard. I don't know if it was for you.
Probably at the time the department was set up, it probably follows the standards. I think you may have something in that we may want to look a little more closely at domestic violence incidents as far as what the length of time is. But regardless of what the standards are, that's sort of a minimum. If they look in and see maybe this person has a couple of things, none of which seem like a big deal, but they see a pattern, they
Yeah.
may come back to you with a recommendation that, you know, maybe this person should. So the domestic violence is 4 years old, but there's a couple other things. They're still gonna say this person may not be right. So it's guidelines, and it's as Lieutenant Lawler said, it's an overall. For the department, it's how is this person going to work day to day with our department. For the city and the legal department, it's how are we going to defend the city based on who we hired to do the work when we get sued. So it's a little bit of both of those things.
well, I was just thinking domestic violence, it might be a long impression to a candidate for 3 years. I beat up my wife 4 years ago. And they apply, but, you know, if it's generally disqualifying regardless of the length of time, really changed it. Actually.
So when you get on the polygraph and ask them, the issues of domestic violence, that kind of is it catches it out. So,
And I think like Mike was saying, I think even though they may have made it just barely outside of the standard for years, there's something else going on with this candidate. We're gonna find out if they've got anger issues at work, or their friends don't like them for some other reason, or something. It's not just a one-off usually. But that's what the deep background does, is it gives us a chance to look at that and go, oh, there's more to this, even though outside the window. And so we pay close attention to all of that. We're not just because somebody speaks by, doesn't mean that's, oh, you have to let them go. Doesn't work that way.
I understand. And you know, I thought you all the deep background investigation. Because a lot of these people I wouldn't want to see, you know, on the or come in contact with if I was. So these are just questions I had when looking at specific questions and looking at. That's all.
yeah, good discussion. Okay, second on new business is the cancellation of eligibility. Yes, sir.
I have a suggestion. I don't have any concerns now. So if it's you, it's okay with you. Because of the name all of them. Which I think we did.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So things that we want to pass. Person. Okay. All right. Okay. So
Thank you, guys.
So first is Timothy Callahan, Salvador Francisco, Hannah Holmes, Iman Roshan, Omar Rimas Cortez. Is the motion to consider eligibility?
I knew that these 5 individuals eligibility depends on the disqualified.
And I second that. So the motion does pass to cancel those.
Talk before we need to go about whether or not we want to go ahead and not vote, even though I'm motion in a second, we pretty much got your
Oh, okay.
majority, but we thought that that might be good.
So all those in favor of canceling the disqualification, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, unanimous.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Yes.
So on this whole topic of cancellation of eligibility, I did send you some information. So the practice has been that I sent a letter certified to the folks after it gets approved. I wanted to send them a certified letter. My name says just get returned. I think it's an additional expense we really don't need to incur. I would like to just send out the. I'd like to send them to. Right. So I'm going to do that starting tonight.
What is that? Just not accurate. What is that? Constellation? Do a sort of-
It's kind of like that. It's sort of $4.
So that we're doing that for all the rules, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the next item is the reinstatement on Iowa police officer eligibility list.
I have a question. The agenda I'm looking at has cancellation of eligibility, and the next thing it has is certification of entry level police officer eligibility.
Okay. Okay, so the certification of entry police officer eligibility.
Yes, so let's see, we added 3 names to the March list and the demographics of those on the list now. We have 11 males, 5 white, 3 black, 1 Hispanic, 1 Pacific Islander, and 2 or more races.
You notice the.
Oh, okay, okay. Is there a motion to accept the entry level police officer eligibility list? Is there a second?
I can second.
Second it. Dennis, would you have something on this one?
Yeah, there were like 8 candidates in the last list who have not been disqualified, but they were off the list. And all of these candidates get jobs someplace.
Some did.
Yes, and from the disqualifications, some of it is a,
Well, other than the disqualification, there are like 8 of them.
I think some fell off the list because they had been referred 3 times.
oh, yeah. There's a few of those, and then a couple of people did get picked up by other agencies. Would that account for some of the people that retired?
Yes.
And then retirement, so we have 4 people that started recently.
And the ones who have dropped out because of the 3 referrals, is that mandatory or discretion?
That's part of the civil service rules.
Is it mandatory?
Can we just have that discussion on which is filed? Because that's the difference.
No, that's referral.
We had no objection. to
No.
certain individuals dropping out. I
No.
suppose that they've been tested 3 times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And generally, when we initially did the look at, have them come in, do their initial background interview with their background investigator, and then take a look at their PhD, the personal history questionnaire, do a little digging in there. We can find, there's just some candidates that, you know, there's nothing that would disqualify them, but we don't feel based on what we know of them, they would make a strong candidate for us. And we have the option to disqualify them for not a good fit. I don't like to use that one, unless there's documented patterns of history of poor decision making.
It doesn't appear to be discretionary.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So now we can get to the reinstatement on lateral police officer eligibility list. All those in favor of approving the eligibility list for entry level police officer? Say aye.
Aye.
So moved.
Okay, so the reinstatement officer Melody Wright was employed with us from February 2018 to November of 2021. She requested reinstatement and she saw the support them. And this does require conditions to be reinstated.
We knew that this candidate be reinstated to the list.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So on that one, she goes to the top of the list, and so she'll be hired shortly. Or
She'll still have to do the background.
she'll get referred.
You still do it back.
You never know what they end up to. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing.
All right, the certification of lateral police officer eligibility test.
So let's see, last week we interviewed 3 candidates. And their names are added to the list. We've got number 2, 3, 4. And then of course Melody's first on the list. We have a total of 5 on the this, we have 4 white males and 1 white.
With number 6 is going removed.
Right. Number 6 came off, because we have been referred 3 times already.
All right. Is there a motion for approval of the Blackwell Police Officer eligibility list?
So,
A second?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a second, and all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The motion is passed for the Blackwell Police Officer eligibility certification. Next, we have the workforce demographics.
Yeah, I provided the demographics chart. Let's see. So you've got the last 5 quarters there summarized. And the March 31st chart reflects an increase of 1 white male officer, 2 white female officers. So another overall increase of 3. For the first quarter of the year.
further increase in female representation, 12 to 13.7%. Going up.
That is good. A little bit helps.
About Mary, your report.
Yeah, so let's see, we did entry police officer exam on April 16th. We tested 31. I think I was expecting about 62 were eligible at that point. 31 showed up to take the written. And then we had 23 passed on the written exam and the physical ability test. Our day-to-day so far, we've got 2 more days scheduled. So we should have an eligibility list at the June meeting for entry. And the sergeant's exam process is underway. Sergeant. So with that, we do a written exam. There's a work performance ranking process, and for board interviews, the written exam will be on May 18th. We hope that the list will be presented to the July 7th meeting.
Someone can exam. Could you go through that process again?
There's 3 primary components to that. So we have a written examination. There's a work performance ranking, which involves the candidates' last 2 performance evaluations, and then the supervisors give them ratings on different aspects of their work performance.
Okay, the written exam is faster.
They're actually going to go smart.
So the written exam, the work performance ranking, there are percentages.
Work performance ranking, there's not a fail.
So, if I sidetrack, you can describe this next meeting. I'm just, we previous meeting that we had a discussion that we had to approve the procedures and the processes for all of the various ones. And we have approved all of them in the past.
Right.
And so now whenever we have this, we just continue to vote. But now I don't remember what
But it
the
was.
procedures and processes and how much percentage. I just need to refresh my memory. Look that way. So I didn't need to want to sidetrack you. So you can describe that.
Okay.
So
That's amazing. Okay, so let's see. So staffing changes since our March 3rd meeting. We had terminations and resignations. Officer Noble and Officer Lori. New hires, we have David.
Were those determined? Two terminations. One term.
So we hired David Lucetti, Sean Burkfitz. Those for both laterals. And then Natalie Cyber and Jeff Johnson are two entry level officers. And that's it for my reports. Sounds good. So anything else? for the board? Think we're all good.
Gail, I think you have better weather than we do.
It's 87 degrees today.
How do you run in that?
In air conditioning. That's all
Ah.
we can-
There you go, there you go. All right, Gail, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate that.
Hey, yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. Next month, I'm also in Florida. So,
No worries, no worries. And good luck to your nephew, right?
yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, with that, it is 9:57. We will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.